To the world, they were country music royalty, two sisters with golden voices and a bond that seemed unbreakable. One was the coal miner's daughter, a titan of tradition whose life became an anthem of struggle and survival. The other, a rich siren with a pop country polish whose voice made the world wonder if her brown eyes had, in fact, turned blue. Loretta Lynn and Gayle were more than just sisters. They were symbols of country music's past and its crossover future. But behind the sold-out tours and glossy magazine covers, the relationship between them was far more complicated and human than most people knew. It was a bond shaped by a staggering 19-year age gap, making them more like a mother and daughter than typical sisters. For decades, the narrative was driven by whispers of rivalry and the carefully crafted image of a perfect family. Now, at 74, Gayle is finally telling the whole story. It's a story not of jealousy, but of a deep, abiding, and sometimes difficult love. It's about savvy advice, private pain, and the unbreakable bond between two sisters from Butcher Holler, Kentucky. Before the Grand Ole Opry and the Grammy Awards, there was Butcher Holler, Kentucky. To understand the bond between Loretta and Crystal, you have to understand the world that shaped them. Butcher Holler wasn't just a place, it was a universe carved into the Appalachian Mountains, a life of isolation and poverty, yet brimming with a resilience that would define the Webb family. Their father, Ted Webb, was a coal miner who descended into the darkness each day to provide for his 8 children. Their mother, Clara, was the heart of the home, raising the family in a small wooden cabin. They didn't have much, but as Loretta famously sang, they had love. And that was the one thing their daddy made sure of. Music in the holler wasn't a luxury, it was the thread that stitched their lives together. The family sang constantly. It was in this environment that their musical destinies were planted. For Loretta, born in 1932, this world was everything. She was a true coal miner's daughter, and her experiences there would become the bedrock of her art. But for the baby of the family, Gayle Webb, born in 1951, the world was already a little different. She was the first of the Webb children born in a hospital, a small but significant sign of changing times. By the time she was 4, the family had moved from Kentucky to Wabash, Indiana. This move created a fundamental split in the sisters. Formative years, Loretta's identity was forged in the isolated hills of Butcher Holler. Crystal's was shaped in the more suburban environment of Wabash, where she was exposed to a wider world of music, including the pop, rock, and folk of the 1960s. The 19-year age gap between Loretta and Crystal was more than just a number. It created a divide that shaped their entire relationship. When Gayle Webb was born in 1951, Loretta was already 19, married, and a mother herself. They never shared a childhood home. For Crystal, Loretta was less of a sister and more of a distant, almost mythical figure who was also a mentor. This dynamic was shaped by their personalities, too. Crystal has often said that Loretta, outgoing and able to talk a mile a minute, took after their mother, while she was more like their shy and reserved father. While Crystal was in high school in Indiana, Loretta was in Nashville, rewriting the rules for women in country music with brutally honest hits like You Ain't Woman Enough to Take My Man and Fist City. She was building an empire, one honest lyric at a time. For Crystal, watching from the sidelines, this must have been dizzying. Her big sister wasn't just a singer, she was a phenomenon. During her summers, Crystal would tour with Loretta, getting a first-hand education in the music business. She saw how her sister was often told what to do, and decided early on that she would be her own boss and learn to say no. Loretta gave her incredible opportunities. The biggest came when Crystal was just 16. Loretta fell ill before a performance at the Grand Ole Opry and convinced the management to let her baby sister take her place. In a shiny dress her mother made for her, a young Webb stepped into the hallowed circle and sang Ribbon of Darkness. It was a seminal moment, orchestrated entirely by the sister who was already a queen of that stage, while Loretta was becoming a household name with songs like Don't Come Home a-Drinkin' with Lovin' on Your Mind. Her youngest sister was living a normal teenage life in Indiana. Imagine the surreal experience. The superstar on your radio is the same woman, who is simply your big sister. Crystal's talent was undeniable. Her voice, unlike Loretta's raw twang, was smooth, clear, and elegant. Loretta recognized this and was determined to see her baby sister succeed. She knew how quick the industry would be to dismiss Brenda as a mere copy of her famous sister. In 1970, Loretta helped Brenda get her first recording contract with Decca Records, the same label Loretta was on. But the label had one idea: market her as the next Loretta Lynn. Her first single, I've Cried the Blue Right Out of My Eyes, was written by Loretta. While it charted, the strategy was an artistic dead end. The songs failed to capture Crystal's unique voice. Even her name was an issue. The label felt Brenda Webb was too close to the singer Brenda Lee. It was Loretta who solved the problem. The story goes that while driving, she saw a sign for the Crystal hamburger chain and suggested the name Crystal, telling her it was bright and shiny, just like her. Brenda adopted it, and Crystal Gayle was born. But a name wasn't enough. Crystal was trapped in an identity that wasn't hers. To succeed, she'd have to break away, a move that would require the most important advice her sister would ever give her. Entering the Nashville scene as Loretta Lynn's sister was both a blessing and a curse. The family name opened doors, but inside, every room was decorated in Loretta's image. For 3 years, Decca Records pushed Crystal to imitate her sister's traditional sound. The comparisons were relentless. She recalled people telling her, "You can't be Loretta's sister because you just don't sound like her." She was being suffocated by the very legacy that gave her a chance. It was then that Loretta delivered the most important advice of Crystal's career. In a moment of sisterly wisdom, she sat her down and told her to quit singing my songs. "We have one Loretta Lynn, we don't need another," she said. Loretta knew that direct comparison was a death sentence for a new artist. She recognized that Crystal's strength was in being different. "She told me to go middle of the road," Crystal recalled. She said, "Don't ever record anything I would do, because you will only be compared." This wasn't just career advice, it was an act of liberation. It was a queen telling her sister to blaze her own trail. Taking that advice to heart, Crystal left Decca in 1974 and signed with United Artists. There, she paired with producer Alan Reynolds, who understood her vision. Together, they crafted a sophisticated blend of country and pop, anchored by her smooth vocals. The results were immediate. Her single Wrong Road again became her first top 10 hit, and it sounded like nothing else in Nashville. The tabloids, of course, were obsessed with a supposed rivalry, but both sisters denied it. The truth was, they were both too busy with their own soaring careers to have time for a feud. In 1977, the gamble paid off bigger than anyone could have imagined. With one song, Crystal Gayle was no longer just Loretta Lynn's little sister. She was an international star. The song was "Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue," a masterpiece of sophisticated melancholy. The track was a perfect vehicle for Crystal's voice. It was too polished for traditional country, yet too soulful to be simple pop. It was the middle-of-the-road path her sister had pushed her toward. The success was staggering. It hit #1 on the country charts and climbed to #2 on the Billboard Hot 100 pop chart. The album it came from, We Must Believe in Magic, became the first by a female country artist to be certified platinum. The song earned Crystal a Grammy and made her a global ambassador for a new kind of country music. With this single song, she had found her own identity. While Loretta was the voice of the mountains, Crystal was the epitome of counterpolitan cool. Her floor-length jet black hair became her signature. She was no longer living in a shadow. She was casting a long one of her own. Loretta, far from being jealous, was immensely proud. She understood her own lane and celebrated that her sister had found a different one. Crystal's success solidified her place in music history. She would go on to have a string of other #1 hits, including Talking in Your Sleep and Half the Way, further cementing her status as a crossover star. She had built a legendary career alongside her equally legendary sister, not by competing, but by daring to be different. With their individual successes established, the narrative of rivalry slowly gave way to one of mutual admiration. They shared stages and always spoke of each other with deep affection. One of the most poignant displays of their bond came in January 2017. After a 50-year wait, Crystal Gayle was formally inducted as a member of the Grand Ole Opry. The person who welcomed her was Loretta Lynn, standing together. Loretta put her arm round her baby sister and declared, "We've been together a long time, honey, and we've never had a fight." But privately, the dynamic was more layered. Crystal has admitted there were times she felt invisible next to Loretta's star power. There were reports of missed holidays and the kind of strains fame puts on families. She has spoken of the resentment she sometimes felt at being constantly compared to Loretta. It was a deep love that coexisted with very real human emotions. Loretta may not have always been aware of the shadow she cast. Crystal shared that Loretta once told her, "I brag about you to everyone, but I forget to tell you to your face." It's a statement that speaks volumes. It's a fierce pride that didn't always translate into the validation a younger sister might need. In the years before Loretta's passing in October 2022, the sisters found a quieter connection. They recorded a track together for Crystal's 2019 album, You Don't Know Me, the first time Loretta and their sister Peggy Sue ever recorded as a trio. When Loretta died at 90, Crystal's public statement was simple and heartbreaking. "The world lost a legend. We lost a sister. Love you, Loretta." The story of Crystal Gayle and Loretta Lynn is about family, identity, and the intricate dance between love and ambition. It's the story of a 19-year age gap bridged by music and a shadow cast, not out of malice, but out of sheer brilliance. Loretta didn't just kick down doors. She held one open for her sister and had the wisdom to point her toward a different destiny. Crystal's journey was one of quiet determination, of finding her own voice while honoring the one that came before. She proved that a family can produce more than one legend, and that sisterhood is about creating the space for each other to be different. As she reflects at 74, Crystal shows us that the bond they shared was never about rivalry, but about a deep, complicated, and enduring love. For more stories about the legends of country music and the incredible lives they lived, make sure to subscribe to our channel.